September 9th, 2015, I was standing outside the Hyatt Hotel in Midtown Manhattan, planning on getting a car, heading to the US Open to do some corporate appearances and sponsor visits and things like that. And didn't think much of it, and looked up from while I was waiting for the car and saw someone running towards me. And as he got to me, I was smiling, thinking this was some sort of a friendly encounter, a fan or someone that was just a long-lost friend or something. But he quickly dispelled that that myth in my head and put me on the ground and slammed me to the ground and had his knee in my back and cuffed me and told me to not say a word and just listen to whatever he had to say. So I did. I complied. I had seen everything in the news about non-compliance or perceived non-compliance of anyone in custody of the police. So I stood up and did what he said, and they said it was just a case of mistaken identity, but it was clearly, in my mind, excessive and didn't need to be handled that way when there were 5 officers on the scene and could have easily just asked me for my identification and moved on and not had any sort of an incident. But as it was happening, I was pretty much in shock. I try to think of myself as pretty calm, cool, and collected, and I didn't know what to do, what to say, how to act, because I hadn't been put in cuffs like that before. I didn't know how else to get my point across because they weren't listening. I was trying to let them know that my US Open credential is in my back pocket. I'm not someone that, whatever it is you're looking for whatever kind of criminal you're looking for, it has nothing to do with me. It's not me. And they weren't hearing it. They didn't want to hear anything about it. They were in power, they were in control, and let me know that. And so going through it, I was embarrassed. I felt extremely vulnerable because they had me cuffed and I didn't know what for, and I didn't know what they were planning on doing. So the blue wall of silence, from what I understand it, is when any officer does something wrong, inappropriate, the rest of the officers are going to be silent. They're not going to mention that. They're not going to go against him and turn them into internal affairs or turn them into anyone else. They're going to stick with him, and that's almost like a fraternity, a brotherhood. And it's something that is hopefully outdated and was prevalent supposedly back in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And a lot of the officers I speak to now say that it's a thing of the past, that it's not happening. But in my case, it seems like it happened because there were 5 officers that all witnessed what happened, or 4 that witnessed what happened, 1 that was the instigator, and none of them filed a report. Any of them could have filed a report and said, this is what happened on this day, this was inappropriate, but none of them did. So the first time the NYPD made a statement, it was that they were investigating whether excessive force was used, and that I wasn't even in handcuffs, and the whole encounter took less than just a couple of minutes. And when I saw that and couldn't believe that was the story they were gonna go with, and I didn't even know at that time that there was a videotape, there was surveillance footage that showed what actually happened. And it was just infuriating to see that, because I knew that if there wasn't that video, they could get away with that. They could say that, and they could have 4 or 5 officers say the same thing, no, nothing happened, and move on. And I was very much afraid that was going to be the case. Even as much as I feel like I'm credible, I have no reason to lie or to make up a story. I feel like the general public would listen to 5 cops that are on the scene that would say one thing, even if it's contradictory to what I say actually happened. And after I got back from the US Open is when I realized that there was a video, and as soon as I spoke to the head of security at the Grand Hyatt, he said, well, I saw that too, and we have the timestamp on here, and it was for 15 minutes. So we know how long you were in cuffs for. We know we have him leading you away in cuffs. We have all of that. So I was very thankful to him for helping me and for making sure that tape stayed safe, because I think that's what help the truth get out and help people realize that I wasn't just making this up, or that what they initially said was far from the truth. And I don't blame the ones that are in the higher ups, the powers that be, because they may have heard that story from the officers that were on the scene, and you would expect them to believe them to tell the truth. And without that video, there was no way for them to know that, so they had no reason to not believe them. And I just think it's it's sad that that would be how those police officers that saw it on the scene would then report that to their superior officers. It was something where I wanted to make sure that the police officers that aren't doing the job the right way don't take away from the police officers that are doing the job the right way, and the ones that are so-called bad apples are held accountable. And that's when I decided I wanted to make that something I was going to write about, something I was going to talk about and speak on, the fact that that just can't keep happening. And police departments in these cases, in my opinion, would be better off with transparency, with letting a lot of people know, letting the public know exactly what happened, and finding out from the rest of the officers what really happened. And I think so many officers I've spoken to since that time really feel like that whole blue wall of silence is not a real thing, that they're not all sticking up for each other, but it seems in this case they did. And if that is just maybe optimism from other police officers and police departments, I hope that it's going in that direction, that there will stop being the whole blue wall of silence, that they just stick up for each other no matter what's right or wrong, as opposed to just sticking up for what is right, for what actually happened, for the truth. And as far as police reform across the country, I just hope for more transparency all across the country, and the accountability is what matters to me, because I truly believe that the majority, over 90%, over 95% of the police officers are acting in an honorable, dignified way, and they deserve to be called heroes. But the ones that aren't are really eroding the trust. The ones that are doing the wrong things are making it so that people like myself, anyone that's been in any sort of encounter like this, may lose some of their trust for any police officer. And that's not fair to the ones that are doing the job the right way, that deserve our trust, that we should look to for support to keep us safe, to keep our communities safe. And when the ones that aren't doing it that way, the ones that are using the badge as a shield to protect them, as a way to continue being a bully or anything else they're using it for, those are the ones that should not be protected by the unions, by any sort of system that is going to just protect. Once you get a badge, you're protected. I think that shouldn't be the case. You need to be accountable no matter what your job is. You're a human being, and you need to be held accountable for your actions, especially when you're allowed to make life or death situations with the people you interact with. And if someone's making a life or death situation with my life, I would like them to be trained properly. I would like them to feel comfortable in every situation. I would like them to not feel scared at any situation. And I'd like to know that they are doing so with honor and with respect for my life and for the lives of everyone in their community.